Okay, everybody, good evening. Welcome to tonight's Safety and Operations Committee meeting. We are going to move forward with a slideshow. I've taken attendance. So tonight we have a heavy emphasis on operations because due to the many different types of projects that we have ongoing. We have a smaller safety agenda tonight. Mr. Miller, Chief Miller, is not here tonight, but remember he does report out on the safety school safety presentation in June. So that'll be heavy in June at the school board meeting as well. So we felt we'd give a small update on that process. All right, so up front we have lead in drinking water. Mr. Fabrizio, this is a mandated process for us to simply read into the record some sort of, as Joe has been informed by some professional groups. So go ahead, Joe.
Thank you. Our lead in drinking water flushing procedures, basically we run our water spigots that are potable for 30 seconds every day to flush out any impurities in any stagnant water, which is recommended by PDE. And we have developed an aerator cleaning schedule. Basically our plumber goes around and cleans all the aerator screens, and we've been slowly converting from traditional water fountains to bottle filling stations throughout the years. And our next one is just a little slide we use to remember to flush the tap water.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you go back?
Sure.
I'm a little taken aback that schools are not required to test for lead levels. Why? I mean, this may be outside the scope of the discussion here, but why not?
That's a good question, and I will have to reach out to our consultant on as to that matter.
Okay,
But
that just
under
seems-
Act 39, we're not required to.
Okay, and who's responsible for doing the flushing every day?
So we have our custodians flush, our kitchen staff flushes, basically anyone that's touching water.
Okay, what
they're
about in the
aware.
restrooms?
What's that? That's not potable water. We're not using that as a
In the
drinking
sinks?
source. In the kitchens.
In the restroom sinks?
If you want to drink out of the restroom sink, I guess we should put a sign in there then.
That's not considered potable water?
It is potable. We can put a sign in there to make sure everyone.
But right now, no one's flushing those pipes.
Well, I mean, we use the restrooms every day, and
Yeah.
they should be flushed at night. The custodians do run the water to wash the
Okay.
sinks out.
So I guess to sum up what you're saying, Mr. Fabrizio, is that this process is only taking place in the sinks that are known to be drank from, not into
Correct.
the bathrooms.
Correct.
So because it is not happening, due diligence would be you should put in the bathroom sinks that we should not be drinking the water. But there may not be anything wrong with the water.
That's correct. It all comes from the same pipe.
Do we test for lead on a regular basis?
We have in the past, and we have found no elevated lead contaminants in the water supply.
But we're not currently
No,
on any kind of schedule.
no.
Is that a complicated process?
We would bring in our, what do they call it? Our environmental hygienist, and they would sample, random outlets in the buildings and have that tested. We can certainly look into that and get a cost to do that.
So is lead the only thing that we test for? And did I hear you correctly say there is filtration in the system for other things?
So in the water fountains, depending on age, there could be filtration in the water in the bottle filling stations to filter out different things.
To assist in a little bit of that, when the pandemic happened, we actually had the board approve the school district to replace many of the water fountains, either because we turned them off, and then we didn't bring them back into service, and then we replaced many of them with these bottle fillers, which come with the filtration units attached with them.
Joe, Am I correct that none of our schools have any lead supply lines, and the only potential source of lead would be possibly solder in an old copper plumbing? So we typically don't have any new source of lead, and we're on public water in all of our schools.
That's correct. We're in public water. Yeah, so even the not lead solder, even the solder now does not have lead in it. The new solders.
You know, the only possibility might be some pipe at
Old
South,
pipe.
and that's about it.
Well, and South was renovated, so.
Yeah.
So that addresses a lot of my concerns right there.
We can follow up though, Dr. Weston, just to make sure.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, so just some quick updates here. I want to bring everybody up to speed on stadium upgrades. Some of this you may have heard before, but we do have some additional pictures to share where we're at. And Joe, because this is a fast-moving project in the concession stand, he's got some updates to share.
Sure, so we're tracking to finish before June 7th. Today, the tile crew was on site. They're about a week and a half out for tile. The drop ceiling is going in. The bottom pictures, we had some spray foam done the other day. Today, the soffit is about 98% done. That should be done tomorrow. And then the two ends here are the concession windows. The overhead door guys will be out tomorrow to put those doors on. And we're wrapping up. So it's coming along.
Are those bathrooms going to have separate heating splits?
Mm-hmm.
They'll each have their own split?
So they're in-wall heaters
Oh.
in the restrooms. So each one will have its own heater.
And,
Yeah.
and cooling or
No cooling.
no cooling?
Mm-mm.
So it's gonna be hot as hell.
There is an exhaust fan,
Okay.
so
Very mentally.
they just have to move quick.
Well, I think that's, I mean,
We can always add like a mini split. I mean, if it's unbearable in the restroom.
well, that's why I
There
thought maybe
is.
it was a heating cooling split. I didn't know it
No.
was, they're just heaters though.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
So I know in the field house there's no air conditioning in there in those restrooms either. So
Okay.
just heat.
Well, it's cinder block, right? So I think it
Yeah.
probably
Naturally,
stays
it's cool.
fairly cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
the floor is still going to remain concrete. We're just going to epoxy it, so hopefully it's
And what about in this main concession area? I know before there wasn't anything in there by way of cooling or fans or anything. Are there any
there's-
fans planned?
No, so we do have a heater, but we maintain the big roll up in the back. There's a roll up in the front, and then the two concession roll up. So it's pretty much a big wide open space.
Okay.
There's going to be plenty of outlets, so if they want to add
Yeah, that
like
was
a
what I was going
pedestal
to ask.
floor
Let
fan or
boosters-
something, we
Let
can
boosters
certainly
know if they're going to be manning it that they may need fans. And,
we can certainly put one in there.
Okay. It just gets real stagnant in there because there's a lot of bodies sometimes with
Yeah.
the people
But there's
helping.
definitely a great cross breeze that runs through there.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks really nice.
We're getting there.
And again, our goal is to have this ready to be used for graduation. And I think we're on schedule.
Boring. That's the terminology here. Just let them play on words, guys. You gotta liven it up a little bit.
Get it? Boring. Right.
Okay. So again, this is kind of a quick update.
So yeah, so I reached out to our boring contractor that's going to be extending.
Couple of jokes later.
They're not dad jokes. Extending infrastructure to the field house and to the lower turf field. So we're going to run this in conjunction with the aqua water main, as mentioned, so we can be sure we don't hit that main and we know the precise depth of that pipe when they cross it, because we will have to cross it. So they're going to be on site at the same time. And this will take about a week to complete, putting in the pipe. Any questions on that? All right, next slide, Jim. You're already ahead of me.
Yep.
Card access. So I'm big into safety, and this is just adding another layer onto this. So in the field house, I'm proposing, not the field house, the concession stand restrooms and the concession stand itself to put card access on there. So we'll time it open for events. So say there's a football game, the doors will be open from, 7 p.m. till 11 p.m., then automatically lock. In addition, there'll be a deadbolt indicator, so we'll know if someone's in the bathroom, because I can't hold the door open and not have a secondary lock, because then you would just be able to walk into the bathroom. So there'll be a thumb screw deadbolt in there that'll say from the outside vacant or occupied. Any
So-
questions on that?
So this will not, I mean, it's fine for the duration 99% of the time, but there's going to probably be times where somebody's going to need access either before or after. So what mechanism will you have in place to allow for access by an authorized person outside of the windows? Will the hours be posted? And then also, is there any risk of having people get locked inside?
No, because they have to lock themselves inside, and we can enter from the exterior with an override.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if someone's in distress or, they can't get out, we have the capability to enter.
And I'm assuming it can be done remotely, that you would just then allow for access. So will it be, I guess the question will it be communicated to whoever's in charge of like whatever booster event, if they need access to drop off cases of something, or
Absolutely.
and who will be the point person for that? You or
Probably me or HR.
Okay. So more than one person's going to have access to be able to open and close.
Yeah, so any staff member that has an ID badge will be able to get in to the restrooms.
Physically, if they're there, that's fine.
Yep.
But I mean, from as far as remote access to the concession stand, that way there doesn't have to be somebody that comes and,
Yep,
because the purpose was to eliminate the keys, but to allow for granted access.
that's correct.
Okay.
All right, and just please note for the board members that this was late in the game, so it's not on for approval for Monday night. It'll be part of the package in June.
Okay.
All right, just,
And does that delay anything with regards to timeline?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No, they'll still be able to lock with the deadbolt.
Okay. Oh, it'll just be an update to the, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
The next is surveillance out there. We'd like to put several cameras in just to see who's coming and going from the concession stand, and have one inside for any cash transactions that may occur, just to keep kind of eyes on the property when no one's there.
Great.
Just note again for the board members, this was late in the process. We were actually hoping to dovetail some of those cameras for the PCCD grant that I'll talk about a little bit later that we were denied on. Maybe to take one or two of those cameras and place them here as we develop this plan. We were denied that, so now this has to come back. Joe went out and got a quote, again, late in the game, so that you'll see this in June.
So it's two cameras?
No, there's, I believe, 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, great. So this will be by concession. Will it also be by the FAR restrooms?
And once we get the infrastructure in, that's part of the boring project, then we have the capability to add card access and cameras, phones, whatever, in that location.
I think that's critical in that area.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And hopefully, I know you're clicking off all of the items for the stadium. So I'll wait until after.
Oh,
you're
I
done
got
with
one
this.
on here just
All right.
for you. It's
Okay,
coming
good.
up.
All right, good.
So this is just a couple pictures of the new slide gate that was installed. It's a nice aluminum gate. We can move it with one finger. It's nice. So we're just waiting on the actual physical gate operator now that will make this thing move on its own with the key access. And then again, we will have communication sent out on open times, and we'll have to work with athletics to schedule this. So right now, for instance, at the elementary schools and a couple middle schools, I have the secretary set up in the system so they can go in and schedule doors if they need to. They can open doors from their desktop or whatnot. So certain individuals will have the capability to schedule this gate open for events, and then it'll automatically close. There'll still be free egress out through the runner's gate, which will also have card access, so no one gets locked in the stadium. There's always a way out. Any questions on that? Okay.
Moving on to the ticket booths.
So these little things get expensive. This is a single-person ticket booth. It's 5 feet by 5 feet. We can add HVAC to this. There's a slide window, there's a door, a place to sit and take tickets and make transactions. So these are base price around $5,100 a piece. And you can see all the add-ons if you want to add, you know, the HVAC if we need stamp drawings. But I think these are mobile, so I'm not sure we're going to need a stamp drawing. But let me launch the video here,
Okay.
Mr. Weaver, so you can kind of see just a 3D flyby of this. If you can hit the play button. There's your ticket window. It's a slide window. There's a light inside as well.
Do you think that one's sufficient? Do you think that one is sufficient?
So I have in here for 2.
Yeah.
But as I was, you know, thinking, we could possibly have, I mean, the way I would see it is have one in the middle coming up, but have a window on each side, so you funnel
Oh,
on both sides. We could stick these back to back. I did get a quote for a double, and we're pushing 65,000. I was like, whoa.
65,000?
Yeah, six.
How much are they individually?
These are 5,000 base.
Oh.
But once you start going bigger, the price just goes. So,
And this would be I mean, this is like an actual ticket booth.
Yeah.
So this would be preferable to then something like a shed or,
a little more substantial, but yeah.
okay.
And this works, and you will see that there's another part of this that will bring together then a little bit with the evolved technologies. And you'll see that a little bit farther in.
So
from-
even though this is freestanding, it can be wired then for,
Yeah, so we would have like a quick disconnect, and it was like a, you know, a
like a
quick
plug and
lock,
play
like
sort of thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then we can move these with the skid steer. They're forkable, so there's, you know, we can pick them up and move them. So
And this is the recommendation, not something like, that's more like, literally like a shed.
So it depends if you want to go with something more permanent or not. We would need to know placement, where you would want to put it, because we do have vehicles that come in and out all the time
So
through
you
there.
like that this is like,
You can move
can
it.
be placed, doesn't have to be, and so where would it be stored?
So we certainly have room behind the concession stands.
Okay.
We can put them behind there. There's plenty of room there, or right next to it. But I would see them in back of the concession stand
Okay.
when they're not in use.
And they come empty, but wired.
Yeah, they come ready to connect.
Plug and play, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But they come like, there's no like stool or anything in it, like that's like,
Yeah, add your own.
okay.
And of course, now the ticket booths today are a little bit different than what we've had before. There should be very little cash.
Yeah, well, that's why I was wondering about the
Right.
scan, like for scanning and things like that.
And-
But I didn't know if one would really be sufficient. Like the whole purpose in my mind for having something there that's official is that there isn't this like frenzy of people just scattering inside, that there's some sort of a semblance of a queue and like an organized,
Agreed.
you know. Okay.
And again, we've got some time. It's 4 weeks from the time we decide, so we figured we'd just take most of the month of May here and get it prepped for June.
Okay. Does anybody have any opinion about that? Okay.
Okay, so this works with the Evolve metal detector. So just as is stated in there, North Penn is about to receive these Evolve metal detectors. And unfortunately, it's very proprietary. So Joe and I both watched the demonstration it was about an hour long. We actually had a phone call with our sales rep, and then we actually had a phone call yesterday with our regional manager who is in charge of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Essentially, these chutes are all over, but you probably, unless you've been to the link, and what they are is they are dual systems, so 2 tracks or single tracks, and they have a piece of equipment like a wall, halfway wall in the middle, and then end walls that help to guide the people that are entering into a chute, and then it tests and looks with the help of AI and various network algorithms for weapons. So when we envision the new look in the front, we have the gate, we'll have the ticket booths, and then we'll have these tunnels, so to speak, where people will be led through. A dual a dual setup can handle about 4,000 people in an hour. So we are planning on looking at the cost of and duplicating what North Penn has. They have a dual one at their middle, so 2 lanes, and then they have singles, one for the students and one for the students. We have a similar setup. We're not exactly like them. So they are getting theirs next week, and we're going to go over and see what it looks like. We don't have anything permanent. They're very cautious with handing out estimates. So that's an estimate for North Penn. So we're very, very hopeful that we can bring this forward in the near future for further discussion. It's a big investment, but it certainly takes care of our ability, as Ms. White said, to stop with the murking around and people outside the gate and then they're inside the gate and they're all, this would be a clear tunnel type approach that we would have. They're weatherproof and they are portable and we can move them in and move them out. So graduation, we have them there. We can move them back in. We can actually put them inside for a big basketball game. We could actually do that. They're very portable. They're on wheels. They're all compact, and everything is within them. The actual equipment, viewing equipment, the cameras are inside the main camera panel for the double, and on one side for the single. So it's all inclusive. It's all compacted together. And there would be a connection to a tablet where a guard would stand by. You'd still need 2 people to look at this. And then as people would come by, the technology would pick up on something that looks like a weapon. And then we would ask that person to come over and we would wand that particular individual. So it would be a whole team effort for this approach. We really think that in this way, we would really help to protect everybody coming into such large events.
Especially with a lot of outside
Absolutely.
visitors. So, so this would be in addition to wanding then?
Correct. The wanding would happen after they go through and it would be identified as something to check out.
Okay. Similar to like the airport, you're not necessarily wanded until
Correct.
you're
So
flagged.
these are used at like Disney, for example, all the
So-
Philadelphia
so they're
sports
like
arenas.
this?
No, it's 2 vertical,
Yep.
like walls, basically,
Yep.
half walls.
I wish I had a picture of it.
And you just walk through it.
Okay.
So they are in many sporting events. They're in theaters all over throughout North America. And so this is an opportunity for us to really improve our security.
And so with regards to funding something like this, are there grants available? Like what type of, is there a program that incentivizes or reimburses schools that you could apply to offset?
I don't know that. We'll continue to look at that. And we could always put it into potential for we lost the PCCD grant, but there's a DCED grant out there, opportunity that might help us. And there's always, every year, there should be the safety grant for 35 to 45 grand, but we're talking an estimate of somewhere north of that, at 200,000. So we've got to be careful.
I mean, it's that $40,000 is not a
Right.
small amount of
We
money.
could,
So,
we certainly could.
so is there, with regard to like training for use of it,
Hmm?
is there like a ramp up time for folks to is it pretty self-explanatory or?
Yeah,
Okay,
We saw the demo. It's pretty self-explanatory.
okay.
You sit on the back end when you enter, and the tablet, and it will automatically say, it flashes red on the back end, so only the person looking can see it.
Okay.
And you can get a live feed picture of what it boxes, what it thinks is something.
Okay.
And it look terrible things, guns, pipe bombs, those types of things.
So
It-
I'm familiar with the ones in Disney that they are really just like you said, like little half walls.
Yep, exactly.
Certain things besides weapons flag them. Phone batteries, for example, I think is one of
Right.
the things that flags them. Things like that.
Yeah,
So,
Joe, you actually asked a couple of questions about that.
Yeah, I mean, but if you know those things, you can have people remove them and have them in their hands prior to
Right.
walking through, so you don't have to end up wanding like
Yep.
everybody. But
And I will also point out, Mr. Miller was on the call, and he did ask several questions about that. What it really focuses in on is the shape of like a gun barrel, because it has to be metal. The barrel itself, it can be all 3D'd and all that stuff, but the barrel has to be metal. And so that's really what it's doing. It's a magnetic almost like
Uses
a
magnets along with AI and
yes,
cameras.
along with AI. And again, we'll continue to develop this and share with the school board at this point in time through the summer.
How many people do you need to operate the system?
So the people that we talked to said you need 2 people for each shoot. Or if you're really good at it, 1 person for 2 shoots.
But then you need, if it picks up on something, then you need somebody to do
Yes.
bonding.
Yes, and we asked them about what their clients use. That's one of the reasons why we're going over to North Penn, because North Penn has an idea of what they're going to use and how they're going to use it. But once the rep is there, goes through the process, then they'll have a better idea of what they need. Mr. Miller is aware that teams of 2 to 3 per shoot.
So,
And-
will North Penn's be in place for their graduation?
That's their goal,
Okay.
yes.
So that'll be good intel to
Yep.
have to see how, that'll be a
Absolutely.
good trial run for them.
Abington also has this. And
So two or three people presumably to run the system. Is that comparable to the security presence that we have now?
it is for the big games, like Spring Ford, absolutely. Mr. Miller and Joe and I were talking that we could also utilize the shoots, and then we could close up shop on like the singles and bring them into the doubles, because at some point in time, then we have to tunnel, hey, you're a little bit late, it's 6:45, you have to go through the main gates. Those types of things that we currently don't do. The gates are open, okay, come on in. So we'll have to, procedural changes that we'll review that will help to address that. But you're absolutely right. Chief Miller is on that. And so hopefully we figure that there will be a heavy time period from 6:15 to 7, and then hopefully that will go smoothly, and if not, we'll have to rearrange. And then address the people at the other single gates, perhaps to come to the double gates to get everybody in before kickoff.
Well, and ideally, nobody should be flagged, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's really the base of it,
Correct.
right?
But it is progress from our perspective, and we'll be sure to report back to the school board, because if it really looks good at North Penn, then we'll have a strong recommendation to the full school board in June.
And then with regard to some of the other restrictions, like bags, for example, would that change based on allowing, we'll have more oversight as to what's coming in, so then if there's, kids carrying bags or whatever.
Initial thoughts from Mr. Miller are that we still need to keep those strong.
Okay.
Clear bags, that type of stuff that people are already aware of when they go to professional events.
Right. No, I think that's best practice. I just think that
Signage.
yeah, right.
Communication to people, hey, don't come here with a backpack or whatever. It'll draw an instant, come on over and you'll get wanded. Go with the clear backpacks, those types of things.
Okay.
But we've got to be stronger, admittedly, communication-wise, to set the expectation for our people that are coming.
Right. Well, this would be a good opportunity to make it, you start at ground,
Yep, agreed.
even playing field. Okay.
Does the AI, would the AI pick up on
Are you miking?
non-firearm? Whoop. Sorry. Does the AI pick up on non-firearm type weapons, knives or pepper spray cans or anything like that?
They pretty much said that it would not pick up on knives.
Okay.
And then he was pretty adamant about that. He said, look, this is not the panacea, but this is addressing guns and pipe bombs and things that are discernible. Knives, he said, not so much.
Okay.
He was very clear about that, which I was happy with, but still, so eyes are still the most important things from our security team.
And there's legitimate reasons to be carrying a knife for many people. There is not a legitimate reason to be bringing a gun in. So we're going after the biggest problem.
Correct.
Well, and I also think the diligence of having folks walk through a process is, that in itself allows for eyes that weren't previously on spectators and students. So timeline-wise, we're going to wait to see how everything shakes out at North Penn, and then maybe August, I'm thinking, because we're off in July, and then we're back in August. You'd have some sort of a,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, if it all goes well and we can get those other components like the money behind and really get a real estimate from them, then maybe perhaps in June.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to be that fast. I mean, all the important people, Mr. Fabrizio and Chief Miller were there, and had an opportunity to look at their questions directly from the sales.
So on first pass, regardless if it costs whatever, it still looks like something that you would be willing to recommend.
Definitely.
To, okay.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on that? Okay, fire panels.
Out with the old, in with the new.
So this is moving on from stadium?
Yes.
Okay, so back to the stadium real quick.
Okay,
So on the back side of the stadium, we talked a little bit about just some of the different pockets and areas, and we're going to be adding the 2 bathrooms to the front where the concession is. Obviously, the other bathrooms will still be there. Those corners are pockets where there's a lot of currently during games. There's a lot of community and communal ruckus. What is the plan for either stanchioning, sectioning off, not allowing those same types of congregational areas?
So I don't want to use technology to solve a people problem. So I think we need to put, boots on the ground and move people away from there. Just because there's a stanchion there, I think, well, I'll just go under it.
So the problem is that that's not the current practice, though. So like I've walked through that area. I think any administrator that's been to a game has walked through that area to go to the bathroom. And even though there's a security guard standing there, there's still 60 kids there. So I guess then the ask is, what is going to be put in place if we're doing all of these updates and we're making sure that everybody's, safe there, that they're in a seat or in a vicinity of watching what they're there to be watching and not congregating. And
So I think we need to hold whoever's monitoring that area accountable, and they need to know that, hey, these kids or these people can't be loitering here, move them along.
okay.
I think the other thing is, let's go back and talk to our administrative team, because I do know at times we did have additional administration there for certain high-profile games where we knew there would be a big crowd. To review those processes, bring our police, our additional, not just school police, but school security officers as well, and APC, or outsourced group, together prior to the start of the season to address some of these issues. These are long-standing issues that we definitely need to address.
Yeah, to me, the easiest, I wouldn't call it technology, but I just think blocking that area off even with a gate is, you could put up rope and, buckets with concrete in them. And if there's you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying that people can't move that, but it's then very obviously apparent that you're not supposed to be on the other side of that. It doesn't have to be some sort of like high-tech solution. It can be as simple as, like, this area is not open for you to be hanging out in. There's no reason for 60 kids to be huddled in, and then behind the bathrooms. Like, it's just like, those to me seem like very low-hanging, solvable issues going into the next year.
Okay. Duly noted. Thank you. Okay, so fire panels you saw in with the new, out with the old. I think I said that right. All right, go ahead, Joe.
You can hit the next slide. Got it. So we've identified as part of the capital projects priority list 2 fire panels to start with, Evergreen and East, that are in need of repair. They're original panels to the building, approaching 25 years old, and we're seeing high failure rates on different components, which are becoming harder and harder to get. The current panels are proprietary, meaning we have to call Siemens or Johnson Controls in and pay their crazy rates to work on the panel. We're kind of locked into them because it is proprietary software. The new panels are not proprietary, so I can call another company in. If I'm not happy with the service I'm getting from company A, I can call company B in. These panels also have advanced features, which can help pinpoint any faults in the system, and they do have mobile app capability, so if an alarm goes off, we know about it in real time. The plan is to start with East and Evergreen, and then move out to a school per year based on different building evaluations. And these are listed in priority how I would move through them. Skip back southwest, Schwanksville, admin building, and then the high school. Do we have any questions on this?
So this is definitely a big ticket item, we know that. And there may be some additional resolve to this from a solution perspective, as in looking at the cost and possibly including the first part, Evergreen and Middle School East, which are the neediest and the most priority, into a potential bond issue that we've been talking about for the ESCO 5.0 Exhibit A. We know the ESCO 5.0 Exhibit A is going to be about $8.3 million. And the administration is looking at a bond issue, working with Jamie Doyle, which we'll talk about on Monday night. It is a way for us to address these needs, and then perhaps dovetail the delta between the bond issue and the ESCO 5.0 Exhibit A to help address some of these concerns. We are also looking at, again, I'll get to the DCED grant opportunity, which is an up to $5 million ask grant, which we will add these numbers up and apply. That will be our DCED grant request. Again, it's competitive. I'm not sure that we'll be able to qualify for any of this ultimately at the end of the day, but we will ask for this as part of our grant application.
Jim, fiscal question on this?
Sure.
And I appreciate the explanation there. I just want to make sure that I have clarity on this. If we were to put these into the bond issue, the bond would be paying for both the ESCO and this.
That's correct.
Because this really, there's no way for this to fit into the ESCO.
That's correct.
Okay.
These are not,
Energy saving devices.
Correct.
So it would just be the same fiscal mechanism to fund both.
correct.
Thank you.
Yep. Again, we will have Jamie Doyle here on Monday night to go over some of our options with that. And we'll develop a strategy. Again, it's an option for us. And if the board says, nope, we're just doing the ESCO 5.0 Exhibit A at $8.3 million, okay, that's fine. We've got an opportunity in the DCED grant, and if that doesn't work, then we'll figure something out. But these are really high-ticket numbers and very important numbers. And Mr. Fabrizio has made that pretty clear in his prioritized listing, so we'd like to support that. Okay, vape sensor protocol. Mr. Ganesh.
Good evening, everyone. Vape sensors. So pending the board approval of the vape sensors, here's the process and procedures that we have developed for the implementation of the vape sensors. Again, once the board approves the vape sensors, our plan is to install all the vape sensors this summer, but activate them in batches of 8, so our administrators and security staff can get used to the systems and modify their processes and stuff like that. At the beginning of the school year, at the high school, we plan to have an increased security presence due to shifting some assignments. So this way, the security staff are able to attend to those alerts. And once the alerts stabilize and the administration has a better knowledge of how the systems work, we can these resources can be scaled back. So we've identified Mr. Haran, or whoever is going to be in that position as a point person to coordinate the response to the alerts, and this person can then, if need be, reach out to the administration to escalate the situation. So we're also proposing revisions to the code of conduct to increase consequences for vaping. For example, we understand that our school police can issue non-traffic citations with the fines of up to $200. Currently, the fine is about $50. So we want to make this as a deterrent. Using a school police issuing a non-traffic citation.
And that would be on the first offense.
Right.
Great.
And we currently do have a digital hall pass system, but there has been some challenges with that system. So we're looking at implementing an improved digital hall pass system. This way, our teachers have some knowledge about or some data on who is getting the hall pass, like how many times they go into the bathrooms or who the person is. So we're trying to make some data-based decisions. We're trying to get there. So obviously communication is the key. So whenever a student is investigated or questioned because of this alert going off, we want to make sure that the parents are kept in the loop that, the student was questioned for that. So we also want to make make use of this opportunity as an educational moment. So we want to make sure that, our health curriculum is updated and kind of uses a learning moment for our students and our parents to kind of explain the consequences of vaping. So these are the procedures and protocols that we have developed for this implementation. Again, there might be some changes after talking to the administrators. This was developed in conjunction with the administrators. There may be more changes coming, but this is the draft of the process and procedures that we have developed for this implementation. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, district office update. The school board knows that we've been addressing some of the issues at the district office. And we have decided to present it this process in this way. We've broken it into a couple of different phases. So phase one is going to be the painting and the flooring and furniture upgrades associated with the upgrade, the initial upgrade. Joe, I don't know if you want to add anything to the phase one process. Joe's done an awful lot of work. We presented that, the layout of the carpet as part of one of our approvals and the LVT at the board meeting, and it's open for school board approval at the consent level. So, Joe.
Sure. In addition to that, internally, we'll be replacing ceiling tiles throughout the building, and we were able to leverage a PICO incentive for replacing all the lay-in, the drop-in lights, which we received all the lights for free. So we'll be replacing those as well. And I think that's pretty much it for the interior upgrades.
So that would cover phase one. Phase two then turns a little bit different because, oh, sorry.
What came back for furniture?
So Dr. Russell's still working on the summary of the furniture at this time.
Okay, because it's listed there under phase one. So phase two then is all of the operations stuff.
Correct, with the big question of where do we put operations? We do know that our area of expansion in the administration building is in what is currently the warehouse in some way, shape, or form. In order to do that, we need to move operations department. We know that. We just don't know where. So, Joe, I don't know if you want to add some of the items to this, but some of the long-standing committee members and school board members know that going way back at least 4 or 5 years ago, we looked at the Wortman property road right off the property here of the school district. That was not ideal. We've looked at several properties that have come open for sale and have sold within the Iron Bridge development itself. And of course, we've have a long history of looking at various construction options and costs associated with them. We've looked at the area right near the softball field. We've looked at the area up above, outside the back end, quote unquote, of Middle School East. We even looked at what we could do inside the athletic facility, the stadium, way back 4 years ago as an initial step. Don't kind of have any direction at this point in time. However, Joe has some additional information that he might want to share with us.
Sure. So upon investigation, hit the next slide. Jim.
Okay.
I reached back out to the owner of Wortman Road, who is now, I guess the original owner passed away, and now his son has it. And apparently there's a squatter on the property. So they are interested in selling, but they're working through a bunch of legal challenges now to remove those individuals from the property. So they did say they would give us first rights if we wanted to purchase the property. I don't know if it's ideal, but it is. It does adjoin the district property. We would have, in speaking with John Moran, we would have to rezone and get a variance for that to do the institutional overlay, and then demo the existing structure. One positive is, utilities are there already. We have the electric and water, and everything that we would need to put something on there. One of the other hurdles would be the neighbors, if they would be up in arms if we put a commercial building next to their property. So there's ways to mitigate that with vegetation and, like
I think that they would
berms
prefer
and-
that rather than the squatter.
Yeah.
So with regard to the parcel that's there, obvious, we had talked originally about the cost associated with it, and then it would just need to be leveled. There's nothing
Right.
salvageable there. We'd be basically buying the piece of land.
Right.
So has any work been done with the township at all to look and see if there are any current liens on the property? If there's a squatter there, like, is it paid?
It has been paid up.
And there's just somebody living there. So
That's
it's not like there's a lien situation and then, okay. Okay.
So I'm also working with Jerry Gorski to see what we could possibly even fit on that plot of land based on township regulations, if it would accommodate a building that we would need.
Can you remind me how big the parcel is?
The parcel's 50,000 square feet.
Oh, it's small, yeah, okay. I remember I had printed the public record for it, but I didn't realize, okay.
So another option that just came up is 107 GP Clement Drive. I did a walkthrough the other day and spoke with the owner and the rep. So at first, it just came up as leasing only. So I'm like, well, I don't want to lease. How much do you want to buy it, to purchase it? And they said around $2 million. So this building, hit the next slide, Jim. It has ample storage space. There's office space. It's like a open concept, 2 restrooms, a kitchen, parking, and the big thing is that it's been township approved already for a 10,000 square foot expansion, if you ever wanted to expand the property. So that was another option that just came up. Any questions on that? Just an idea. Just trying to exhaust all our.
And again,
avenues
just
here.
for the board members and the committee members, we would absolutely have to go to the school board and say, we need the authority to do that. So we're just, when Joe goes down there, he's just talking as a friendly neighbor, that's all, so.
Yeah. Eminent domain. So the next option, I did, like I said, I've been talking with Mr. Gorski. Another option is to build at East, to put a structure up there around 9,000 square feet. We'd be around 3.5 million to build it, with a 1-year turnaround. So that's kind of where it would go, back by the Lenape Trail in the parking lot there. And then the next slide would be kind of the layout with the garage bays, and then 1,500 square feet of a heated storage area, 2 restrooms, break room, and offices.
So Joe, how much, with regards to the square footage that is going to be lost in the back of the district office, what is the loss?
I'm around 7,000 square feet in there.
That would be the loss. Because, I mean,
That's how much
no
we're occupying.
scenario of you're occupying about 7,000 square feet. But I'm talking about with regard to the district office refresh and bumping out towards the back, creating that conference room that was discussed. What is the loss of space that that back warehouse area? Like you said, the district office is not taking over that whole warehouse. So I understand that these options would allow for operations to move all into one location, but unfortunately, I think that would be a luxury for the district. So, what additional, what is the additional storage that you're looking to accomplish that you're not going to be able to serve with the back of the district office currently?
So it really comes down to how big of a proper conference room the district needs in that space, in the back warehouse area. So is it 500 square feet? Is it 1,000 square feet? I know there's a formula for conference rooms for the amount of square footage per person you need to have that kind of comfortable area. So I guess we need to have further discussion on, what do we want out of that area? I envisioned a larger conference room that's quite large, and then have a divider wall in it where we can section it off when we're not using it for large meetings to create 2 additional spaces, to kind of, multitask that room.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and standing back there, I envisioned sort of the same thing, and, you know, just looking towards supporting beams, you know, there's still quite a lot of warehouse space back there. So I'm just wondering, like, what needs to come in? I think that there's room in the warehouse at the stands with no construction of the conference room, you know, just with storage, with paper storage. I think you gain space. So I'm just wondering, like, what other things you would like to have in one spot? Maybe that's what I'm not
I
understanding.
think we
is-
have everything there. It's just, I think
I just don't think that you'll be really losing too much space in my mind.
I think one of the things that Dr. Russell has said, at least to me, has been the desire to keep all of our technology group people together there,
Yeah.
which we currently don't do.
Right.
To have our instructional staff, the curriculum people together. They're not all there, and a desire, albeit a reach because of money and space, to have special education people there as well as their main hub. That has been a pretty steady stream of consciousness from Dr. Russell in her desire to ultimately get there. Plus, as we mentioned, the conference room, because we can't bring all of our administrators together, for instance. We can't have all of our special education teachers together in one spot. We've got to go into the buildings, which during the summertime is great, right? We can get in there. However, during the school year, if we have to have a large meeting for a specific subject matter, that's the issue. We can't bring everybody together in one
Right.
spot.
Yeah, no, those are the conversations she relayed to me as well. So, I mean, there's two different groups, right? Because there's the operations, let's keep the wheels on the bus and run the district.
Right.
And then there's the academic operations of personnel. And so I understand that part of it. So, you know, the conversations that we had, standing in the space and understanding how big it is, the size that it is, I just feel as though there were some potential opportunities to allow for both things to happen, aside from, you know, a $3 million building. So I think that was really where, in my mind, we pivoted in a way to use the space that we have, you know, and we even talked about using the space within the library here. Maybe that's a potential for a conference room. I mean, this conference room would be just tremendous if you go column to column to the windows. You know, I just think that there are some other opportunities to keep everybody happy and not have it be a $3 million ad, because if we were going to do that, we would have just kept looking for a district office building.
so
That's in my view, in my personal view.
So one other hiccup is the parking issue. We're kind of maxed out on impervious surface. We can't add more without a variance. I talked to the township last week about that. We're maxed. So bringing more and more people in, we're already pretty much jammed up with parking as it is.
And that absolutely is a significant concern. There's nothing you can do about where the building is and what the parking lot looks like. So then again, maybe we refocus and shift mindset. And if that's not a true feasible hub for district-wide activities, but we can get people on campus, well, then where can we do that in this real estate? You know, that's the way my mind thinks about it, because I just think that, you know, we sit in this cavern of a library, and I just feel like it's not utilized necessarily the way that it could potentially be, you know, utilized. This is the largest space in the building, you know, but.
Good point. Good point. Okay, so we kind of wanted to bring a lot of these things to the forefront. We'll go back and we'll talk about it as an administrative team and continue to work on this and some other options and continue to keep everybody abreast of where we're at. We do know that it would be an uphill climb, as Ms. White pointed out, to spend taxpayer dollars on an administrative building. We know that. But nonetheless, it doesn't mean it's not an option for us to at least look at and then discard pros, cons, and review and debate. Yep. Okay.
You want to hit number 6?
Come again?
School East.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, okay. So, middle school east and west auditoriums. We have a whole separate presentation here. And thank you, Joe. Okay, so Mr. Ganesh and Mr. Storm are here to lead us through what is a direction and a plan for us for our auditoriums for middle school west and east.
Right. Yeah, that's the reason why he's here, right? All right. So today, Jim, if you go back to the previous slide, please. So before we dive into the details, today we really want to talk about the state of our auditoriums, all three of the auditoriums, to see where they are today. There are some significant upgrades that these auditoriums need. So we want to kind of lay out what each auditorium needs, and considering the amount of cost it's going to take, we kind of put together a 3-year plan, because getting everything done in 1 year was going to be too much of an ask. So we kind of laid out a 3-year plan to get all these auditoriums upgraded to the most latest and have them functioning at the most optimal levels. So Jim, if you want to go to, so our high school, let's start off with the high school auditorium. This is our smallest of the 3 auditoriums. It's currently used every day for the study halls. We also hold staff meetings and assemblies here during the school day. Outside of the school day, it hosts only about 4 major performance events. These are the concerts, plays, etc. There's about 4 events that are being held at this auditorium. And we did some significant work in this auditorium in the recent past, like, new sound systems, new seats, new floors, new lights, new stage lights partially, new projectors. So we kind of touch every aspect of this auditorium, and we kind of upgraded this auditorium to kind of be functioning to what the requirements are. Again, this auditorium is not used very, very, very fully. So we believe that the current AV infrastructure in this auditorium meets the requirements of what the auditorium is being used for today. So at this point, we're not recommending any upgrades to this auditorium yet at high school. Additional upgrade, that's right. So moving on to the next auditorium, which is a little bit more heavily used than the high school, the West Auditorium. Again, it's used for staff meetings, assemblies, occasional study halls, and presentations. So this auditorium hosts about 15 presentations a year. Again, shows, concerts, musicals, etc. It's about 15 performances a year, and their rehearsals. So we have done some work in this auditorium as well, not as much as the high school, but we've done some work in this auditorium as well. The soundboard was upgraded in 2019. We did the light board control as well. We replaced that. There are some partial upgrades to the stage lighting in 2019. Minor infrastructure upgrades, the new projector in 2022. So we've done some work in this auditorium as well. But the problem with this auditorium is the backbone or the audio visual infrastructure that comes with the auditorium is as old as a building. It came with the building, so that's deteriorating, and it's starting to fail. And the continuous load on these auditoriums is going to increase. So it's going to go in the opposite direction. And if you don't do any upgrades, we might start. These things might start breaking. We already starting seeing signs of the age. They're starting to break down. But if you don't take any action now, this is going to continue to get worse. As the auditorium infrastructure ages, we need to upgrade some of those components. So we'll lay those out in the upcoming slides. So that's the status of the West Auditorium. So this is our flagship auditorium, the East Auditorium. This gets used a lot every day, and this is also one of the oldest auditoriums considering high school was upgraded recently. Again, it's used as a daily gather spot for the students. There's over 20 performances that are held here. Again, during the musical season, the rehearsals are happening. So this auditorium is buzzing like 90 plus days during the music season. Again, numerous staff meetings, assemblies. This auditorium is used a lot. Again, since it's a flagship auditorium, this is also at times rented out to outside organization. They rent this space. This is the auditorium that they rent out. So
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, like, we have done some work in this auditorium as well. Like, as you can see, the soundboard upgraded in 2019. So every year we do some work in this auditorium. The sound boards, the video boards. The major upgrade was the main speaker system. We replaced them all in 2023. We replaced that. So there are some projectors and live streaming equipment that we put in place in 2023. So every year we do some upgrades to the space. But again, the bigger problem here is the infrastructure that's behind that's running the show. The backbone was as old as that building, and it is deteriorating, and it is failing, and it's starting to show its age. And again, with the increased load, it's going on the opposite direction. We are starting to see signs of failure. This is the auditorium that we want to start acting upon at the earliest.
Well, I think that both East and West to me, are equal priority. I don't know that, I understand that East carries the load for the high school as well, but I do think that both auditoriums are equally, you know,
Equally important.
they need to, they're equally significant in the fact that they provide opportunities for the kids that are at both of those schools. So
Right.
regardless of whether or not East shares the burden for the high school, that's irrelevant to me. So I have a couple of questions. So the first, as I understand it, these additional upgrades, because 2019 was not that long ago, they were more like Band-Aid fixes as opposed to a proper refresh of an overhaul of, like you said, the infrastructure is from when the building was built. So 2004 is West. What year is East's?
98,
Okay, so much older. Okay, well,
From the
not much,
90s.
but
Yeah, right.
but fairly
Right.
older. So are these items that were updated, are they not even performing to the level that they could be because of the infrastructure being so poor?
I would say yes to that.
Okay, so it's not like there's a loss of
No.
these updates
No, correct.
through, it would just enhance further the ability to use these modern,
Right.
Yeah,
The one-
go ahead.
Go ahead, Matt.
The monies that have been spent over the years in 2019, 2023, that is all on equipment that would continue to be used with everything new. It's just the newer items would be for support of those type of devices. For instance, the new sound control board in 2019, as well as the digital lighting board. Those are designed to control digital lights, LED lights, digital sound. Those devices were not upgraded just from a financial aspect.
Yep.
So the digital lighting, those are the items that, again, in the upcoming slides are proposed. The
Okay.
digital sound, all of that. So some backbone material was done in 2019, but to do a all-encompassing everything in an auditorium, it's just financially challenging to look at what everything is in one spot. So that's why sprinkle it in year by year, start in 2019, and then
Right.
we try to continue.
okay, so some of the lift has been taken off of both auditoriums.
Correct.
But really, the major lift was not.
Right. Absolutely.
correct.
Okay, I mean, I've just never been to an event where there hasn't been a failure of some fashion, and I'm assuming it's not user error every single time.
I would
So,
like to think so.
so, well, no, no offense. So taking aside the cosmetic, because carpet's like cosmetic, right? Okay, we'll figure out the carpet situation, probably with an LVT of some sort once that comes down the pike. Are there things that are missing off of, like, these are the things that have been done,
Right.
but are there things missing off of the ask, which I'm assuming is on the next slide, that were not captured through the original email download of what was missing?
That is a tough question to kind of answer, because we didn't look at auditorium seats. I mean, you could.
Well, let's
sure.
talk about infrastructure. So even seating, I would say, like, that's kind of cosmetic-ish, right? Like, none of the seats are awful. They're
Right,
not
so-
torn and
So
stuff.
in the next 3 slides, you're going to see
Okay.
the entire infrastructure. I mean, before you go there, Jim, I want to be on the previous slide. So one of the things I want to correct is, like, the things that we put in here, I wouldn't call them as Band-Aids. These were actual systems that kind of function like, car wheels and.
But there were
outside-
piecemeal components
Right.
that were fixed
Right. So
on
then
top of the patchwork of what
trying to
needed.
fix the engine of the car
Okay.
now. These are like the wheels and stuff like
Okay.
that now that we added.
Okay.
So, again, there were considerable needs in at least East and West from what we understood. So Matt and Greg walked through with the vendor. We brought in a vendor to kind of help us understand what this entire scope of the project is. Matt and Greg walked through with the vendor, and he came up with a rough, not a proposal, but a budgetary number. What is it going to cost for us to upgrade these auditoriums in 2024 now? What is it going to cost? So the number was close to like $1.3 million. That's what it's going to
For
cost
both of them.
Correct.
for both of them to upgrade. It's basically the backbones, basically the infrastructure that's gut out the entire
But
lighting.
that's a new
infrastructure.
system. If the building was built today, that's how much the system would be.
Well, that's going to cost a lot more if the building was built today.
Yeah, for the infrastructure that is needed. There are infrastructure items that are not needed.
Okay.
The stage rigging at East is something that is an inspect item, but not a replace item, because the lifespan on that is significantly longer than the building's been open. you know.
So these are truly like the technology items?
Right,
Okay, got
And the
it.
true, at the moment needs.
right.
Again, there are things that 20 years from now might be a revisit because
Well,
that's
20
reached
years
the
is a long
lifespan.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, to get to Matt's point, these infrastructure items would last you
Yeah, yeah.
a long time, maybe 15, 20 years. So these were the ones that were done like 20 years back or 30 years back. Now we are revisiting them to address these issues.
Okay.
So again, our intention was to, when we prioritize this list, our biggest goal was to kind of sustain these auditoriums operational, keep this auditorium operational while we change these, while we make these changes, while we upgrade them. We don't want to bring down an auditorium. We'll keep them operational, address the most important need now, come back next year, address the next need, and come back then. So we develop a 3-year plan, and Jim, if you want to go to the next slide. And again, working with the business office to figure out where the monies are and what it costs. So we decided the first year, again, this is again a proposal, first year, we plan to bring this to the board in June, if the conversation goes well, is to bring in, the first phase of this project will be this summer. The biggest challenge is at the east, the lights. The lights are very unreliable, they use high energy, and they need, it's a safety issue as well. So that's something that we are focusing on for the East Auditorium in phase 1. That's something that we want to get it replaced. The control booth that's right now, if you enter, it's in that kind of middle of, it's more of an inconvenience, not an efficient way to do that, right, Matt?
Yeah, it's also not a secure area specifically, and a lot of the newer equipment, digital boards, you're having multiple monitors and all that, doesn't quite fit a console that was built in the mid-90s to fit a 24-inch wide board, and that's it. So there's a definite need for the upgrade because of the infrastructure upgrades as well.
So our plan is to relocate that booth, the control booth, to the back of the auditorium, similar to what it's in the high school. That kind of provides us more control over the space, safety, and all those things. Again, replace the house lights. The house lights is kind of something that needs to be replaced at the ASAP, ASAP, because it's from the 90s. They are breaking down, and sometimes they would not respond to the buttons. They would stay on for the entire weekend. There are a lot of issues. There are a lot of energy efficient issues going on with those lights. So that light is replacing the house lights is a major priority there. And again, the runway lights, I think Joe, you already have Pittsburgh Stage is working on replacing the runway lights. That's something that we want to get it replaced this summer. There are some areas in the stage where it's blacked out. There's no lights there. The lights have blown out, and we're unable to replace them. So we got to replace some of the lights in the stage. And the stage monitor speakers, the directors on the stage are not able to hear. All the speakers are pointing to the audience, not the directors. So the stage monitor speakers would provide them the opportunity to hear the same sound as what the audience hear. That speakers and also the wireless microphone system is something that we are proposing for the phase 1 this summer to be replaced, and we anticipate that cost be around $500,000.
Okay.
Again, this phase 1 will entirely focus on Middle School East.
Okay.
The $500,000, is that coming out of the capital budget?
We haven't, there is no
No,
reservation
they're
of
not
monies
placed
at this
anywhere
point.
yet.
Okay, this is new spending.
So this would be something that if we were going to go for the bond, we could incorporate. This is obviously a large scale investment of a capital expense.
Absolutely.
But we could incorporate this into the bond, which would not really necessarily affect the overall.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, Jim, to the next slide. Again, so these are today's numbers. So we can come back in 2025, 2026. These prices might be like 10% higher, depending on inflation, whatnot. But again, these are based on today's numbers. So the second phase would be again done at east and west. So continue from where we left off at the phase 1. There's still going to be some stage lights at east that needs to be replaced. Now we'll move on to the Middle School West. Replace same thing as what we did at the east. We got to replace the house lights and the infrastructure, the backbone at Middle School West. Replace the stage lights and lighting infrastructure at Middle School West. New runway lights at Middle School West. Again, there's a communication issue, right, Matt? Like between the.
Yeah, there's not a clear way to communicate from sound booth down to directors or on stage, side stage wing areas, things like that. So we'll have shows where an actor or an actress may miss a cue because they can't see or hear or know what's going on truly in the venue.
So I guess, and so I understand the idea of phasing with regards to cost, but if we went out with a bond ad, if we rolled the cost into the bond, because some of these things are true safety concerns for kids that are actually on the stage performing in a pitch black auditorium. I'm just wondering if really if they can happen in tandem over the summer. I mean, to tell the kids they have to go sorry kids at West, you have to go a whole nother school year, operating on a stage that is not like the walkway runway lights, they don't function at all. Like that to me is
Right.
there are significant issues that
Especially
just because of
Right. So the walkway lights we were actually discussing today. We should probably move that to the phase 1 because if you don't know walkway lights for east, we should probably do that at West as well.
well, I guess that's
to
my
make sure-
I guess that's my point is if there are things that can happen in tandem
Right.
with regards to certain upgrades, you're rolling out an infrastructure in both places. I just think that
Right.
pushing it off a year from a cost perspective doesn't really fix anything if we're going to go for a go ahead.
I mean, that's
Is that true? I don't know if that
I would generally agree with you. However, from a priority perspective, it's got to fit in with, Joe had mentioned that the fire panels are something that concerns him from a safety perspective, and that was why it was part of his original 10, which ended up being 16 list. So that we'd have to balance that.
And again, I'm not saying that we should pick and choose. One's not more important than the other, but they're both theoretically safety related items. It's not. I understand fire panels are fire panels and stage lights are stage lights, but at the same time, when you're talking about person-to-person contact, fire panels are not a direct contact with a student item, and these things are. And so, you see what I'm saying? I understand that that's a separate thing, and that's its own level of importance. But it shouldn't be one or the other, in my mind. It's not. It's two different things.
Matt, what's the lead time on the lights?
A lot of that depends on vendor availability. Some of it also depends on lead time just from manufacturers. I don't know current. I know a couple years ago there was 6-month lead time on lights. I believe that has come down significantly. But vendor schedule, I would say, is also a heavy hitter of timeline.
And these are all vendor installed items, I'm assuming.
Correct, yes.
So
So
it's
they're-
not like it's not a weight on any of your staff or anything like that.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's not going to get any cheaper as well. That was the other part that I was going to add.
Would you standardize and use the same systems we put in at the high school? Would you use the same equipment in the other schools, or?
We would want to make sure that East and West are definitely standardized because they carry all the theater productions. I don't know the system at the high school as well as I know the systems at East and West just because I interact with those on a daily basis. But we would definitely want to make sure that those are completely standard. From this, even the standpoint of if a principal goes into an auditorium and they are running a after-school function, faculty meeting, what have you, that's the exact same protocol and system that they can go into one building as they could go into another building and have the same system running. Also, from an operator standpoint, it's very nice when, if we have an event, for instance, there's a concert tonight at East, which is where Greg is instead of here with us. If there's a concert at West, either one of us can be both places, and the systems are the exact same. Ms. White, to go back to your question about installation and all that, being that a lot of the equipment is very technical, it's very specific to theater and staging, there are specific vendors that are experts at this. This is what they do day in and day out. Right. And I think that's very important that those are the individuals that are, doing quoting and bidding and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And so, I don't know, this is sort of it's not a safety and operations, it's more of a curricular conversation, and I can bring it up with Dr. Russell as well. But I'm curious as to whether or not this type of upgrade could help enhance our stage department in general to allow for opportunities for students to really engage with at almost like a collegiate level. And prepare them for, a certain trajectory.
Sure, and we currently do that when we are in the theater production for the musicals. We
Stage
normally
crew,
have
coach
we normally have high school students and sometimes middle school students, depending on the show, involved in stage crew as well as on the technical side of the lighting and sound with Greg and myself. And a number of those students have gone into theater production degrees in college. So
Right.
it is a great stepping stone. And we do have great spaces. You know, Middle School East is a phenomenal space. It's just the infrastructure is a little tired.
No, it just
is
needs
run
a
its
little
course,
bit of
yeah.
love,
It
that's
does.
all. Yeah, no, I understand that. And, you know, I'm sure that it is valuable information to have them work on, you know, soundboards from the 90s. I think that's helpful for them, but we can just buy them record players or something and let them fool around that way. So I'm assuming that there are things within this, though, like the wireless microphone systems. Like, those are some things that maybe could be added. We could trim a little bit, and then that's not like a hard wired item.
Yeah, correct. And some of those are just, every year the FCC updates their
Yeah,
usable
right.
frequencies, and we have some compliance issues there, so we're trying to hit different bullet points so we're not hearing police chatter during a show, but we're actually hearing the
Okay.
lines from the actors.
Maybe we could be creative about a couple of those things. I heard that technology has a huge budget, so.
Oh,
So, okay, so I'll spend everybody's money at the same time. So, okay, so these numbers, this 500,000, that is just like a broad scope here and here.
Right.
Okay,
So basically, with whatever the proposal that we got from the vendor, the $1.3 million, we tried to prioritize those items. Okay, this is going to approximately cost $300,000. Okay, let's move to next year. So we're trying to work with the numbers and then figure out, okay, next, again, this number, all these numbers will have to be somehow worked into the budget. So again, so those are the items we're thinking about. Again, as this 3-year plan, those are the items will go on to this year 2, and then the year 3 is a little lesser left there. Again, the curtain motors, rigging infrastructure. Again, the East has been renting the scenic projectors every year. Those are about like $10,000. That's six,
yeah,
seven,
yeah, about 10.
about
around-
$10,000 every year. So to put a project like that is about $70,000.
Correct.
So in 7 years, we can have recoup that cost. So that's something that we're thinking about. Spotlight replacement at both east and west, and at that point, we'll revisit the ice auditorium to see if the ice auditorium is still functioning at the optimal, or are the needs change, or the infrastructure change, and then make any changes to that phase 3 back then. That is our plan for the 3 years, and I thought we'll bring it to the committee and get the feedback from the committee.
Ms. White, just to add to the conversation from a perspective of bonds, this being spread out over 3 years, regardless of the supply issue, and I think it will impact the 2024 summer, even if we say go tonight, the bond issue side of things, it would still fit into a
Within
bond
the-
over 3 years, yes. So
Okay,
you've got
'cause you have the
3
3 to
years to spend
5 or- oh,
85%
okay,
of the
got
bond.
it,
Yep.
okay.
So we would, and if it was paired up with the ESCO 5.0 Exhibit A, it would be darn close. And of course,
would any of the lighting fall into that?
well, again, the bond issue, you could piece the entire ESCO program with the bonding for
okay.
this.
Oh, I meant with the ESCO. It's,
No, it would run separate from the ESCO, but for bonding purposes and financing purposes, we could merge them together.
okay. So I guess my only feedback with regards to the asks, and understanding that there's lead time, is to create more of a baseline for both east and west in tandem in phase 1. And then if you would like to have there be a phase 2, you know, layer it on to east and west. But I just would ask that both projects are handled in tandem for equity purposes.
Right. I think one of the reasons that, or one of the reasons behind this kind of an approach was, East Auditorium used much heavily than the West Auditorium, and also the East Auditorium is the one which is fastly deteriorating when compared to West Auditorium. Yes, West Auditorium has some issues as well, but it's from 2003 compared to 1990s.
Yeah.
So East Auditorium is deteriorating much faster. Hence, the priority to do the East first, because of all the items that are happening at East.
And I understand the reasoning behind it, but, you know, again, I'll go back to the fact that, you know, West and East students deserve to have identical experiences with regards to the productions that they both work equally hard. They both deserve the same, you know, short of having the West kids come to East to perform for their play. You know, I'm saying, like, there's no other way to really
Right.
accomplish that. And with some of the items on West's list, it was clearly spelled out that it was a safety issue. I just don't see pushing it further than it needs to be. That's my 2 cents. I don't know what everybody else feels. I feel very strongly, obviously, about the auditoriums and about the arts program in general, because I think that there are missed opportunities for our students that they should be and they deserve to have experience while they're in our buildings.
One thing to keep in mind with it currently in the phasing, if things were to be moved around from one phase to another, if we were to, in phase one, do sprinkle a little bit at east and west to take care of all safety issues, that might move the dollar sign up because of being able to do all the safety items. And if there's anything else that's outside of just safety items, taking care of aisle lighting and the house lighting in both spaces might chew up most of that budget. So then it's okay, we still have a lot of dark spaces on stage. Is that off to a safety issue? So there is some maybe give and take or some pool of what can be done in a phase one versus phase two or three, or what that
But
looks
these are
like.
your spaces, so I would say you should prioritize them as you see fit, as long as it's equitable. But in terms of the dollars, it's still one nugget, right? Like, it still should be, whether you do them today or 3 years from now.
Okay.
3 years from now, there'll be more money.
Sure.
Yeah, so I guess that's what I'm saying. So yes, okay, you're saying phase one might be more than 500, but then it's not really phase one anymore. It's maybe
1.5.
right. I know that was a long time coming in bringing this to safety and ops. This is the first conversation in 4 years I've had at this level about this. So I really appreciate all the work that went into it, and also the advocacy from the department, because as much of an investment as the students make, it's understood that the teachers and the staff have equal investment. So thank you.
And I guess the only questions that I had, you answered in regards to, what would be the trade-off between doing the safety things? If we just did safety, like what would the cost be? Because I think that's the most important thing. And those other things can come later. But yeah, I would like to see if we can just get those safety things in their hand.
But so safety is subjective, though, is what you're really saying, right? Because, I mean, the dark spots on the stage, not being able to talk to the sound booth, like, those are all kind of like, you could say that they're safety.
Correct. It all depends on what lens you really want to look at of.
Right.
In our mind, one of the biggest safety ones is the house lighting issue of if we have a show and we need to instantly pull the lights up, whether it be an emergency or what have you. That system not responding is a huge safety issue. That is, in our mind, our top priority in both spaces. But you're exactly right. If there are significant zones of the stage that are not illuminated because of lighting failures, that's a great question, and I don't really know what a perfect foolproof bulleted list for that is, but we know house lighting is our number one. From that, we can almost illuminate the entire space in an emergency standpoint.
But if you were to, I mean, you can look at it, like you said, from a number of lenses, but if you were to do a risk assessment of the things that, like, would definitely be most likely to cause harm, like you said, in the case of an emergency or whatever, I think that gets you to a place where you get to understand, like, what it is that needs to be done, so.
And I believe in phase one, we did highlight, there was the house lighting, and then we sprinkled in some of the new stage lighting from the LED purpose. And that would give us the ability to have those spaces on stage that are currently dark to be illuminated. So we would have the ability to illuminate the entire house, the entire audience area, as well as have the spots that are currently dead zones on stage, they would be illuminated with the lighting upgrades in phase one. And then as we move into phase two and three, there are also bullet points of increased stage lighting, and that's just to replace then the fixtures that are still from either the early 2000s or the early 90s. Those would be then substituted out with the new LED fixtures.
So the only other thing I'll say with regards to the cost, because I know that some of these larger numbers, and understanding that these are now investments for the next 20 years, because we've lasted 25 years for East and 20 years for West. Maybe we can also look for partnership with the booster program and see if they can help us brainstorm collaboratively some different ideas for fundraising, perhaps for some of the different items, especially things like the icing sort of items, like the curtain, those types of things. maybe like not sponsorship. You're not going to do sponsorship in an auditorium, but seat plaques, that type of thing. If we could come up with that type of dialogue, and I can bring this up. The boosters have a meeting on the 14th. I plan to attend, so I'll bring that up to have a conversation with them about it. But I know as a team, they are very obviously very big advocates of the program, and we would all like to see the program grow.
Okay, any other questions from the committee?
What would be your next step then?
Depending on the feedback from this committee, gotta bring it to the board and we'll have to have some internal conversations about how the monies are gonna fall, and then come up with a plan.
Money and timeline.
And then come to the board with, here's what our plan is.
So collectively, there's just the four of us here tonight. Collectively, do you think that this should go forward to the board, take the next step, move it forward?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Great. Good work.
So thank you. So we will bring it to the board in June then. We'll probably have it in the memo.
You know what that means, Joe? No operations building.
Spend the 2 million.
Sorry, auditoriums are more important than your operations building. I just spent the money like that.
There go the ticket booths.
Nope, no, the ticket booths are still good.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so back to the denial of the PCCD grant. We did apply for a $450,000 competitive grant. We had lumped together, we had one full-time mental health counselor. Now, there was a separate $162,000 grant that was not competitive that we did receive for mental health, so we don't feel horrible about that, but I know Aaron Dreisbach put an awful lot of effort into this particular part of the grant, so we were disappointed in that. Also, as part of that, we also had in there the backbone of our security system for $215,000, and also additional upgrades for cameras, many of them pertaining to dark spots and areas of concern, and also the increase for the stadium area. So we tried to think ahead there. Unfortunately, that was also part of this denial. So unfortunately, the second and third items, the backbone of the safety security system and the remaining cameras for covering those upgrades in those areas, those blacked out areas, now come back into the capital project listing for possibility inclusion in some way, shape, or form of some sort of, we really do need that from a priority perspective. That backbone we were really counting on to upgrade. Now, our current camera system is doable. We've been utilizing it. We feel like that the backbone increase would have given us a better advantage. So we're really going to push that. We just got to figure out where those monies are coming from for that as well. Again, that gets into that conversation about bond issues, perhaps utilizing some capital reserve monies that we have to address some of these needs. We do have an opportunity, I mentioned that earlier, the DCED grant, which again is competitive, just like the one that we were denied with. The fire panels from the other 5 buildings. Remember, so again, we identified middle school east and Evergreen fire panels. The rest of the others, the estimate is about $1.3 million. We thought maybe we would apply for that. Now, the difference between this grant and the PCCD grant is the PCCD grant, if approved, was all coming to us. We didn't have to do a match. And the DCED grant, we have to do a 25% match, max $5 million. So we're going to try to go forward with this fire panels. It's available for us. The information's in there. There are some things we have to do in the back end, like reach out to our local representatives to make sure that they're aware of that. We have already worked with Jamie Doyle in regards to a funding formula piece of this. Not to say that we have to issue bonds, but she had to have some sort of a funding theory behind why we're asking for this as part of the grant. It's the first time we ever had to do it, so we already have that in queue. So we're going to move forward with this and request the grant. The grant is actually not due until May 31st. That's the deadline. And we are hearing that it will take 4 to 6 months for them to get back to us. Unless they run out of money giving it all to the more needy schools, which I'm not going to argue that. So that's kind of what we'll do, and we'll see where that gets us.
So, Jim, can you talk a little bit about when there are competitive grants and the process, when they're submitted, what information do you know when you go in? Like, do you know how many others are going for the same money? Like, do you have any sense of that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in terms of the PCCD grant, there was non-competitive and competitive. They were up front in the competitive portion that said we are capped at $100 million, and we will look towards these variables, which are socioeconomic needy, free and reduced lunch programs.
So you list all of our
yeah,
criteria in there
yep.
that we have such Title I schools, blah, blah,
Yep,
blah. Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
And usually they'll follow up if they have any other questions. We did get a follow-up that said, okay, we have your stuff, and you know what? Here it is. And we thought, okay, that's normal. Most Montgomery County school districts and Chester County school districts did not get their competitive grant fulfilled by the PCCD.
Okay.
We are told, however, that the DCED, it's got different letters, so it's a different department. We are being told if you follow the rule of the law with getting your legislators on board, all of that kind of stuff have letters of recommendation that they will look at
To
that a
advocate
little bit
for.
differently.
Okay. All right.
So
So
we're
basically, it's like a resume. You fill out the criteria
Yep.
and you say, but you have no idea who you're up against.
Nope.
It's just at their discretion based on who submits for
That's
it.
correct.
Okay.
Both the PCCD grants were sent out to every school district, and every school district except for, I think, like they said, 30 applied. So pretty much everybody applied, said, hey, give us the money. DCED, however, we understand, we don't know because it's all tied into private schools as well. They all qualify as well, where PCCD was definitely, they defined who it was for. In this particular case, different department, different rules and regulations. That might actually help us. If it's private schools, one never knows. Brings in a whole different aspect that we didn't have to worry about with the public schools, but yet maybe that means they're a little bit more open. We don't know. This is our first DCED grant that I've ever applied for while I've been here at Perk Valley. So we'll try it. Okay, so
So for that, you say we don't know who actually applies for those grants, which school districts or such or whatever. Unlike the first grant, you said, but they tend to trend towards the have-nots as opposed to. So do you get more points or more consideration the more or the less that you have in regards to?
I think you're right. The PCCD grant process specifically spells out who is part of that, and they would encourage that. The point system that they talk about is definitely heavily weighted towards the more needy schools. There are a lot of different variables that go into that, but Ms. White had mentioned free and reduced lunch applications. We're sitting there and we're approaching that magical 23-24% range. Norristown's 100%. Pottstown 100%. I mean,
Yeah, actually, I think those are the only two that qualified in our county were Pottstown.
Souderton actually got some too. Now, there you
Oh,
go.
you're right.
Yeah. Upper Perk did as
Because
well.
it had to do with percentages, probably. Yeah.
Maybe.
So that makes sense. There are obviously
Yeah.
there are districts in
Yes.
the state that are much needier,
And,
much needier.
that's
right.
not an argument from
No,
us.
no, yeah, no. I
We're almost
understand.
the opposite. We kind of know that we're highly unlikely to get those, but then we put the effort in because we want to get that opportunity in case that they think that we qualify for some reason or it's a unique program that they're interested in funding.
Right.
We want to be the one.
Right.
Unfortunately, it just didn't work
Right.
out.
Well, no, I mean, but you throw your hat in. Okay.
And it may come down to some folks may not apply. So
That's correct. That's correct. Okay, so what do we have in store already before we talk about any kind of additional funding for bonds? As of yesterday, $3.9 million. Remember, this is running total. Capital Project PSD LAF account, that's ours. That's not going anywhere. Bond Series 2019, that's ESCO Project 3.0. That's basically done. That's our money. That's contingency money that's left in there. Bond Series 2020A, that's the remaining amount associated
Jim,
with the
real
state.
quick, so
Yes.
the contingency money, when does that come back to us?
So that's free for us to spend as needed. Because we borrowed the money.
No, I'm sorry, maybe I phrased that wrong. So in the projects,
Yes.
you allowed for contingency.
Yes.
And the contingencies were not needed.
That's correct. So we never spent it.
Understood.
Yes.
So when is that, but isn't there a duration that the money still has to be held, or are all of our bills paid for those?
All
for
of our
that?
bills are paid for ESCO.
Okay, so that
3.0.
is true money back.
That's
Okay, okay.
correct.
That's
Yep.
because there's that holding time where it's like you're
Right.
still shoring everything up
Yep.
that you might need the, okay,
Correct.
okay.
The 2020A was the original athletic field bond issue. And the board is well aware that we've been, spending monies associated with those types of things. POs are written for a lot of this stuff. We do have $232,000 as we mentioned with the PSX cards. That's where that will come from. Bond Series 2021 ESCO 4.0, we do have a couple of projects that have yet to be completed. However, we have deducted for those as already. That looks like it will be a $279,000 unused portion of those monies that would default back to the school district coffers. And of course, ESCO 5.0 right now, from what we know of, we'll spend every dollar with that because we borrowed everything that we needed for ESCO 5.0. That may ultimately change when we finish ESCO 5.0. There might be something in there that is available, but for right now, we'll take it out because that's our conservative nature. We don't want to count on that.
But in that 6 million, there is still contingency money.
There is, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
not
And is
many.
that percentage based? Remind me, how is it written?
That was not percentage based. Those were actually negotiated items as
Oh,
part
they
of that.
were, okay,
Yes.
okay.
And again, remember, that's part of the ESCO. The beautiful thing is that no change orders, it's all on them.
Right.
So they want to try to
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
contingency
yeah.
as high, and we want to negotiate that as
Yeah,
low
yeah,
as
yeah, yeah,
possible.
right, okay. But
Um,
it is nice to have it come back.
It does,
anyways.
it is. And then general fund balance reserved for capital projects, that's real money that sits in our general fund. That's $2.3 million. So all told, about $3.9 million. Remember, these reserves have dual roles. So as we went out with the most recent refunding, that was a point of pride. And as we talk about positive points in the bond rating mind, they thought, okay, this is a good idea that Perkiomen Valley, their school board and their administration have a plan in place, and they have reserves in place in case anything goes crazy. Now, one thing we do have is we have the power to tax. So if we had something wrong in the bond rating mind, we could tax to make up that money. However, now we have Act 1 cap. So if we found ourselves in a hole, which Amy and I do our best to keep us out of, one of the reasons is because when Act 1 comes up, it caps our ability to make up any mess-ups that we had in prior years. That's why we're so careful with that number. So it's important for us to have a reserve. Now, what the magic reserve number is, they don't say. They don't say if it's 10% of your projects or 5% of your expenditures. That's one of their closely held kept secrets. But Amy, this is one of our big deal when we sit down for a 2-hour bond rating call. Amy and I tell our story. And we try to explain what those reserves are doing for us. This particular time, in the past couple of times we've gone out for a bond or a bond refunding, we've been successful and maintained our bond rating. That's one of the reasons why, is that we have that extra reserve there. So I'm very cautious when we say, let's go take care of things, whatever it is. I don't care if it's safety item number 1 or non-safety item number 99. If we're taking it from there, we've got to be cautious with that. All right? Because once it's gone forever. So we just have to be careful. It's got to work in unison with the new money issues.
More money will come in. Gone forever. He's so dramatic. Jim. So, of this money, what is on the capital projects? Where are the numbers? How do they match up?
17 million.
17?
Yeah, the initial 16 items, but there were
17 million.
4 ESCO 5 projects that are going to be covered in that bond issue. So that's minus that 17 million. So probably about 11 million on the most urgent 16 list. And if we get the grant for the fire panels, that'll take off 6 of those
Okay.
additional. So,
So 1.3
Yeah.
off of that.
Okay.
and that's exactly how we're looking at it behind the scenes, Ms. White. So when we talk about this on Monday, we'll have a plan in place to share with the school board for feedback to see if that's the direction we want to go.
I just want to make sure that the upgrade asks that we just talked about are really reflected and absorbed into these numbers. Okay. Okay. Plus a ticket booth.
Okay. So
I
remember,
have somebody that can gift a ticket booth. They're only
So-
like $5,000, right? Who has, I mean, I don't have
Or
5
2
more.
for 10.
2 for 10.
We'll explain a little bit more in the weekend letter through
Okay.
Dr. Russell, what our thinking is so that we can get that out there.
Okay.
And hopefully you guys come loaded with questions or loaded with thumbs up.
Well,
Those are only 2 options?
No, there's parts in between there, but we'll go across.
he
I'll
was,
look at
he
Mr.
was trying to
McKinney
give
and
you the
say-
benefit of the doubt, Bob.
All right.
I would just like to remind Mr. Weaver that you said 7:37.
I know.
It was my fault that it was not. That's, I mean,
Okay.
it's
So
my
we've got.
favorite meeting all month. And we didn't have one last month.
Oh, I know,
here's
I
your
know,
pick,
I know.
so-
Okay,
Lock 'em
so
in.
let's talk quickly about
Lock 'em
committee dates.
in.
Are we okay with this fourth Thursday of the month? If so, we'll move forward with finalizing the dates, making sure that they don't hit upon any holidays, any religious holidays.
So holidays and concerts, those are the 2 things I think that are really, and a lot of times concerts are on Thursdays. So
Okay.
you get me tonight because there's no concert at East, but you almost didn't get me because there's a concert at West.
And we could also make adjustments, as was quickly when we talked about,
Yeah,
we could move
yeah.
it up to 5 o'clock or something and do it.
Well, sometimes I get caught and then we don't leave and then I miss the concert. Not that
about
that's
Friday?
ever happened,
Okay.
not even one time for the winter concert.
So we will plan on
Held
this, we'll
hostage.
circulate it to the committee and make sure everybody's okay. I mean, if you also notice, we've lost some of our public people.
I don't understand.
Well,
I find, I could be here for another hour.
Yeah.
We have more to talk about.
Unfortunately,
Let's
Mr.
pick floor samples.
Mr. Penuel is
Oh.
on the down low.
sorry about that.
Recovering. Mr. Cavalier is traveling. And so this is just a bad time. And I appreciate their input.
And Dean just cut bait, like didn't want to talk about any of this. He didn't want to be part of it.
Yeah, so he's been sitting in the corner. I gotta get him back out. No, he had a family commitment tonight when we moved it from the
No
23rd to
problem.
the, yeah.
There was
that's-
issues. Thank you. And I appreciate you for accommodating me.
That's-
Thank you.
Dr. Russell and I had no problem with that. All right, so we'll get something back out to the committee to confirm that. So as far as the safety agenda goes, these were some of the questions that we asked and worked with Dean. We are qualifying with the weapons. The last week of May and the first week of June, we're doing it in 2 different, it's an all-day thing. So we're splitting up our SPOs into different groups to do it. First group, the last week of May, the second group, the first week of June. And then once they qualify, then they'll be in uniform. They almost all have their uniforms outfitted, ready to go.
I heard they were very sharp.
They
I
are
heard good feedback about it. So.
good, positive.
Good.
Positive. I'll tell Chief Miller that. I mentioned about the 2 different cycles. All the weapons and accessories are purchased, with the exception of the tasers. We are working on those, but all the other accessories have been purchased. And then Chief Miller, the last person that we hired, Mr. Getz, is going through a cycle of the different buildings. And then we'll finalize in the summer for the start of the school year for 24-25 where the SPOs are placed.
Okay, so the folks that are in the buildings that they're in right now, those may not be their buildings.
That's
Is
correct.
That, okay.
That's correct.
Also, remind me, will they work through the summer in their buildings and their assignments?
There are only 2 SPOs that are 12-month. The other SPOs are 10-month.
Does Chief Miller count as one of those?
He would be another one.
He would be 3.
Yes, he works
Okay.
12 months, yes. And the idea is that
He's
we'll
administrative,
see how
okay.
this works for this summer. We do know that we have a lot of activities going on in our school buildings, regardless of whether the students are here or not. And we'll see how it goes. And we have promised the 10-monthers that if there's overtime, if there's something like that, and training that they need to take, they can take it.
So with 3 folks in place, or whatever, for the summer, and like you said, activities in many of our buildings, will they be like zoned so that they would like have a number of assignments that they would rotate through? Or?
Yes, rotation is the big word there, Mr. McKinney, especially now that we have our vehicle fleet, we can do that.
Are they all in the vehicles now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And wrapped? They're done.
they're all done.
So
Yep.
where are they living? In the back?
So, right now,
They're up at the cafeteria. up
Oh,
by
they
the-
are. Oh, okay. I don't
Yeah.
normally drive over.
yeah, they're in the back of the cafeteria. And they all have lights at this point in time. So, yeah, that was pretty cool, by the way. Anyway, yeah, so they're ready to go. And so it will be a cycle of that specific to the buildings that are holding lift, ESY, The basketball camp that's happening here, there'll be a heavy concentration and purposeful intent here to stay here for most of the day, but cycle throughout the rest of the buildings. A couple of the buildings will be completely shut down. From the perspective of cleaning, Joe's men and women will be in there, bust and hump, getting things ready. So,
The only thing that we didn't talk about with regards to like campus management was that back entrance, the Wortman entrance. Have you had any further thought about that? I thought about it say it again?
About the gates.
The gates, or even like the last couple times I drove through there, and there were events on that side field. It's real tight, especially with that storage box. What do you call it?
Shipping container.
Yeah, shipping
thing.
container.
So, yeah, we're
So
working
I don't.
to
I mean,
get that
even
removed.
I feel like you feel like a chain wouldn't even just like get it done, like just
So they
between the
do
two
put
guardrails.
cones up along the one side.
No, I mean to stop traffic from coming through off Wortman. Isn't that what the purpose of the gate was, to prevent traffic from coming through off Wortman? So, I mean, the guardrail, the way that those guardrails are, like right on the, the bridge, I just feel like if you chained it on the days that there's something there, it just would force people to go around. Like, I just think it would be very presumptuous to have somebody pull up to the chain, get out, remove the chain, like, it just seems like it's like the chain should be enough to prevent people from.
Chains scare me because I don't know. I think maybe some people might have a problem seeing it if they're
Yellow,
coming.
like a yellow chain?
They took the chain out at the frog lot and they did some serious damage. I think you
Really?
need something more substantial that's high vis and you can see it.
Like reflective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think chains are discouraged or whatever because they can become like people don't see them all the time, or so like I know at Ursinus everything has to be a steel brightly marked barrier that like you cannot like miss that.
Or what happens if you got a four-wheel or a dirt bike coming through and they don't see that chain?
They get clotheslined.
Bad things can happen.
Well,
So
I would hope that we have no
But-
on the property.
We
no dirt
do,
bikes.
so.
I
Laura,
know,
to be
but-
honest with you, I have not had a follow-up conversation
right.
with Joe or Dean about that. So.
I guess because of the spring sports, there's just so many people in that. It is narrow and it is dangerous, especially if parents and the little kids. Especially with that shipping container, like they could just run right out like from behind it. It's a little bit scary in that chute there.
Yeah, so that container, that's the last one we have
Yeah.
left over from the pandemic. And
I
I'm
remember I
working
asked
with
you what was in it, and you told me stuff. So
stuff.
Okay.
So I'm working with two principals, elementary principals,
we could have a garage sale or something.
to get that, emptied out. And
That'll be like at least $50, Joe.
125 a month.
It's funny, when I first
No, I meant the contents, $50.
When I first came here, the trap building was still there, and my first weekend here, they had a big garage sale.
Yeah.
made-
There was probably really cool stuff.
They made $12.
Really?
The operations staff put all the chairs out, all the desks, they made $12, and then they had to put it all back in.
That's the problem with garage sales,
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
All the effort, no return.
Had the 40-yard can waiting.
Okay, so there's some more information from Chief Miller in regards to he did receive 5 additional metal detectors from Montgomery County. Again, his connection's coming through again, so that would mean 8. So that just happens to match up with the conversation about Evolve with the entrances that we had talked about, and the fact that we would have to wand people through or have people come through and then wand people on the side. The vehicles are done, lighting's complete, we talked about that. We are looking at a vehicle for Chief Miller, perhaps something that's used from a perspective of does it have a cage in it? Because he is a little concerned that the other cars do not have a cage. So in case something should happen and somebody would need to be taken away, which our police officers can do, we don't have a car that's sufficient to take somebody away like that. That's his concern, and I hear that.
Anything to like restrain folks within the vehicle?
Nothing.
So, okay.
Aside from
Right,
handcuffs,
but if
but
you're,
no, nothing.
you're just
Right.
seat buckled in, and we've seen how folks can finagle their
Absolutely.
way out of
Yep.
So
a
can we
seatbelt.
add cages to the current vehicles?
Well, so that's a concern for Mr. Miller, but,
There's a bunch of stuff with that cages,
yeah.
the doors can open, and
right.
the type of glass that you have.
Mhm. So we've got to get some more information on that.
And with the vehicles, just like we got tours of all the school buildings or whatever, do we get to drive? No, I'll just don't ask.
Sure, I will tell you that Chief Miller's a little upset because our friends at Springford call our cars the creamsicle cars. He is not happy about that.
That sounds like jealousy.
Well, I think it
That
is.
sounds like jealousy.
We should ship them like a case of creamsicles.
we can get a deal with popsicles.
And first of all, and that's a delightful treat.
Yes, yes, I know. Okay,
You know what?
Act 55 training continues from Mr. Miller out to the staff of all levels. And the state school safety and security committee training that the state just approved was received by by Chief Miller and Dr. Sachs. So now they can train the trainers. This is a brand new type of training that the state is requiring. And Dean and Amy just happened to be on the list and one of the first ones to have the training. And there's also a complete safety assessment by the Montgomery County at high school west and south, and it's currently in review, and we'll report out to a committee or an executive session, so that we keep it safe, confidential.
While I'm thinking of it, for June, if Mr. Miller, Chief Miller, could come with just sort of a recap of how the year went with our staff in place. Now every single role is filled, correct?
Yep.
Most of them have been in place for quite some time. Just some feedback from the buildings would be really wonderful. I don't know how you would like to collect that, but it would be nice to see some engagement stories with staff and students. Because I hear individual stories about how, these folks are integrated into the school culture and the population there in the buildings, but it would be nice to have that highlighted at a board meeting, and to just have, I don't know if we could even have everybody. That would be really wonderful to just be able to make that part of our June wrap up. I think it would put a bow on the rollout, because I think there was a lot of hard work done this year to get everybody in place.
It's an excellent idea. Thank you.
Only have good ideas, Jim.
Absolutely.
Come on. You want? Bob wants pizza. He wants a light dinner.
Okay. I think I'm pizzaed out. Okay, Joe, you added a couple of other quick hitters here.
Yeah, so middle school east, the cafeteria floor has been an issue for a while. So I'm I brought Franklin Flooring out to remove the floor and keep the concrete, grind and polish it. That's kind of a fix for that floor. Kind of seems to be the trend right now anyway, with going with polished concrete. So I'm working up pricing on that now.
Okay, so is there anything that be removing the tile and only having the concrete?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that needs to be taken into consideration with regards to sound?
Well, it's VCT in there now, so it's
Yeah.
pretty, I don't know, Matt, maybe you can chime in. I don't think you're going to lose any the same.
With the current flooring, there's definitely a lot of sound balancing off of things. So going down just to the concrete, and whether it be, stripped concrete ground and left there, or epoxied or whatever, you're not going to gain any sort of sound deadening. So you're not losing
I didn't
anything, but
think
you're
I
also
didn't think
not
you were
any.
gaining any. I thought it would maybe get worse.
I don't think you're
But
going
if
to
it's
lose any
bad
of what you have.
to begin with, is that something that you want to? Is that something that you think of for the cafeteria? I don't know. Is that an
Their
issue?
kids are going to be loud, so we can maybe add some sound panels.
That's what I'm getting at. Is
Something
the
along
panels.
that effect.
Yeah.
Look into that.
It doesn't have to be like a elaborate installation of sound.
So we need some
deadening.
diffusers and
Yeah, just white noise machines.
need some bass traps in the corner.
We'll take all of the broken stuff from the auditorium and put it in the. Panel's the easiest. Yeah, or you can just hang them from the drop ceiling. That's,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd rather have it on the ceiling, but that might
Well,
just become a target for
sprinklers
food.
is
I don't
part of
know.
the issue with the sound panels from the ceiling of the sprinklers. So okay.
And then we've been working with Evergreen for a playground replacement. Their playground equipment is in need of repair, so the numbers came in a little higher than expected. So I'm working with Ms. Franciosa on that number and the playground equipment provider.
Have you engaged Home and School at Evergreen at all?
Not yet. That is one of the things that Sharon has to do because we finished south in 2021.
With the help of Home and School?
Yes.
And so yep, Home and School.
Yep.
Yep,
Yep.
okay.
And the last item on here, we're looking to resurface asphalt at Schwanksville Playgrounds, Evergreen Kindergarten Playground, high school teacher lot, and district office. And I have a couple accompanying slides. So this is one of the playgrounds. So we
That's
do
probably some-
bi-weekly playground inspections that we track and any kind of issues. So these are coming up. These pretty sharp edges on here.
Yeah.
It's been bad for more than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so we're working on that. And then the paving, this is the first one on the left is the high school parking lot. This is just one of them. There's some pretty big potholes out there and just degradation of the macadam. And then on the right is district office. If anyone's driven through there, it's pretty rough. The last slide is Schwanksville. This would be number 1 on the list.
Is that for size context, just so
Yeah,
we can see?
it's swallowed the radio. So there's some pretty big
It's like a
holes up there.
sinkhole, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so the underneath, I mean, it was patched prior
Yeah, I see that.
several times, and it's just time for a replacement.
Anybody want to
now.
know where Mr. Clemmer went?
Yeah, right, that's real nice, Jim.
I'll text him and tell him.
So we're
Schwanksville
investigating.
was his
Yeah.
reproach.
So we're looking into replacement costs for those items now.
All right.
Any questions?
And everybody else, I feel like we just repaved a whole bunch. We did south, we did skip back.
A lot of here in the high school. We
Okay.
just didn't do the faculty lot. We did the main roads coming up, and we did the front part here, and now Aqua's going to go underneath, and they're going to repave
Yeah, but
it.
they're gonna redo it, it's
Yep,
okay,
yep.
okay. And maybe that one area by where you just showed, they can include that too. when they're-
I highly doubt that. I can ask.
Okay. So that's all we have. It's not 7:37. I
Thank you.
apologize, Mr. McKinney, but
8 o'clock
good.
isn't bad, that wasn't too terrible, okay.
nope.
But you're saying the operations building's not off the table, just not at this time.
The what?
The operations building, it's not off the table, it's just
Let's
not at this
fix
time.
the auditoriums and then we can discuss
If you can fit
operations.
that into that hole,
Yeah. Will your salt bin fit into this pothole right here?
If you move
No.
the stuff out
thanks,
of the
everybody.
container-
All right,
Thank you, Jim.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. That's what we're looking into now. We're reaching out to different vendors that maintain, that sell playground parts to see if we can get some replacement